This is Annie of ByAnnie.com and Patterns by Annie. Thank you so much for joining us today for Live with Annie. As usual, we've started the stream a bit early. This helps us get everything set up and broadcasting properly to our various platforms. You can find a countdown clock on the screen showing how long it will be until we actually go live. While you wait, please connect with us and other viewers in the chat. Let us know where you are from and whether you're a new or longtime viewer. We'll see you live soon! Thanks again for joining us for Live with Annie. We are so happy to have you with us today. While you wait for the program to start, we hope you'll enjoy the content playing on screen. There's so much inspiration, so take a moment to tell us what you love in the chat. Don't forget there is a countdown clock on the screen so you know how long until we go live. it's Annie again, reminding you that we'll be going live with this week's episode shortly. There is a countdown clock on the screen showing how much time is left. You've got just enough time to grab some water or a beverage of your choice and a snack, and to connect with us in the chat. We'd love to hear what you've been working on this week. It's Annie, back to remind you that we'll be starting this week's live very shortly. We've got a really fun episode planned for today, and we'll see you soon. Where it says welcome. Hi, I'm Annie of ByAnnie.com and Patterns by Annie. Thank you so much for joining us for episode 7 of season 4 of Live with Annie. Last week we announced a new ByAnnie challenge. Customize a ByAnnie bag to suit your needs by adapting the design, size, shape, features, and more. To help you accomplish that task, today we are going to focus on ways to adjust the size or shape of a project. Whether you're adjusting it because a piece was cut wrong and just doesn't fit, or you want to make a bag a different size or shape, we've got lots of tips to share, so stay tuned. And I want to wish everybody a happy Valentine's Day. I hope you get to spend today doing something you love with someone you love. I love that I get to spend some time with all of you. Whether this is your first time watching Live with Annie or you've seen all 143 episodes, we are really happy to welcome you to our community. If you enjoy these episodes, please take a minute to follow us wherever you are watching. And if you know someone else who you think might enjoy the info that we share, we'd love it if you'd tell them about Live with Annie. The easiest way to do that is to just tag them while you're watching, because that will take them directly to the episode and they can watch it too. Also, don't forget, we love reading your comments. so please interact with us throughout this presentation. We want to know what you think, and we love learning from you too. Be sure to add any questions you might have in the comments or chat, and we will do our best to answer them before we close. Last week, we announced winners in the new ByAnnie Challenge and also announced our new 2-month challenge, encouraging you to adapt a ByAnnie pattern. To help us get things started, we were joined by the amazing Kim Greenfeld, otherwise known as the Lazy Sewist. Kim shared ways that she has adapted our free pattern Easy Does It by using non-traditional materials, changing the orientation, adding handles and straps, pockets, and more. Kim is just a hoot, and it was a pleasure to have her here with us. If you missed that episode, or if you want to watch it again, remember that you can find all the previous episodes of Live with Annie on our Facebook page, our YouTube channel, or at ByAnnie.com. And we've put up the links to make them easy for you to find. I'm going to have a quick drink of water before we get started here. So we always love seeing the ways that makers customize our patterns to suit their needs. How to accomplish that task is probably the source of most of the emails and questions that we receive. So today we want to share some tips on what to consider if you want or need to adjust the size or shape of a project. Sometimes you need to adjust the size because something was cut wrong, or the pieces didn't end up being the proper size once they were quilted. Other times you want to use a bag for a specific purpose, and the size or shape needs to change somewhat to enable you to do that. So understanding how things fit together and how changes to one dimension affects other dimensions is really important, and it takes away a lot of the angst. So let's start by talking about how dimensions are listed in ByAnnie patterns and what the numbers mean. Last week we received an email from Lorraine, who said that she needed a bag with inside dimensions of at least 11.5 inches by 9.5 inches by 1.5 inches. And she was looking at our Netbook Computer Carriers 2 pattern, which I'm going to grab here, and she wondered whether the dimensions that were listed for that project were the inside or the outside dimensions of the case, which was a good question. So generally, the dimensions that are listed will be the outside dimensions of the finished bag. And to calculate those, we generally start with the sizes that the front and back are cut, and then we subtract for seam allowances. We also generally list dimensions in this order: height first, then width, then depth. Some of our older patterns listed width, then height by depth, so be sure to read the pattern because it will tell you how they're listed, so you make sure you know what you're going. You can also look at the pictures, and those will tell you if it's wider than it's tall, so you'll kind of have an idea of how they're listed. So the Network Computer Carriers pattern includes instructions for 2 different bags, and these are really perfect if you want to carry small electronic devices such as a tablet or a small laptop. The Netbook case, which is this one, is just a really simple bag. It has a zippered closure on the top, a zippered pocket on the front. Inside, there is a full height zippered mesh pocket, and then it has padded candles for carrying it. So it measures 8.5 inches high, 11 inches wide, and about 2 inches deep. And again, that's the outer dimensions of the bag. The Netbook Carrier is slightly larger, and it has more bells and whistles. So it too has a zippered closure, padded handles. It also has a carrying strap with a pad. There's a zippered pocket on the front. There's a slip pocket on the back. There's a special back strap to secure it to rolling luggage. And then on the inside, there's a full height zippered mesh pocket. So the outside dimensions of this one are listed as 9.5 high, 11.5 wide, and 2.5 deep. So the thing to keep in mind, because this looked like it would be a good size for Lorraine, but all 4 corners on this bag are rounded and the bindings are on the inside. So that's going to impact the inside measurement somewhat. So I figure usually that the bindings are going to take up at least 1/4 inch on each side. Rounding the corners is also going to reduce the usable space at the top and bottom. So I usually assume that If it says 9.5 by 11.5 by 2.5, I'm going to reduce all of those by about 1/2 inch. So I'm going to have about 9 by 11 by 2. So I wanted to show you something to explain a few other things like that. So I didn't have a laptop or anything of that dimension, but I've got 3 soft-sided books here, and each of these measure 9¼ inches high, 11 inches wide, and between 3/4 and 1 inch deep. So when I stack them, they are about 2 3/4 inch deep. So if you watch when I go to put these in this bag, I can put one in, I can put the second one in. Oh, I've got another one over here on the side. So I can get 2 in pretty easily and still be able to zip the bag. But when I put the third one in, things start getting a little bit too tight. And it really makes it too high then for me to zip it here at the top. But remember that all of these books were about 1/4 inch taller than what I thought would be, and 1/4 inch deeper than what I thought would fit. So if I had a smaller bag, so let's take this one out, and let's try putting a smaller book in here. I could put that in and I'd still be able to get it zipped. Now you may wonder why, but part of it is because the way these zipper side strips pooch out on the sides and at the top, I gain a little bit of wiggle room for those larger books. Personally, I would rather have a little bit more wiggle room around that so I'm not bending edges, but that's going to at least give you an idea of what will fit and how the depth of the bag can add to the height or width if you need it. Here's something else to pay attention to. As I said earlier, the binding on this bag is on the inside. If I turn this bag inside out so that the bindings are on the outside, you're going to get a bag that has a much more structured appearance. It's going to look more squared off. When you have the bindings on the inside, your bag has a more rounded appearance. Because I won't have those bindings on the inside, it's going to actually be easy for me now to fit all 3 of these larger books in there. I'm going to gain a little bit of space. And I probably could even zip it. So I'm not going to be able to zip it because my zipper's on the inside here. But as you can see, I could easily zip that bag closed now. So I've seen numerous times when makers have switched things around and put bindings on the outside rather than the inside. Sometimes they do that by choice. Sometimes it's just because they sewed things together wrong and they didn't want to change it. But that's certainly an option, so something you might want to consider. I wanted to show you a beautiful Back At Ya backpack that Jacqueline made, and she said, I put my own spin on Back At Ya. Actually, I mistakenly put the binding on the outside, on the back, and I liked it, so I decided to go with it. And I thought that turned out really nice, so great decision there, Jacqueline. Now check out this beautiful Bow Me Over that Dee Dee made, and she put the binding on the outside. So here's a bag that we made, Bow Me Over, with the binding on the inside. You can see how different Dee Dee's bag looks with the binding on the outside. So she used the blue colorway of a fabulous fabric from Hoffman Fabrics called City Skyline to make that bag, and it is really a lovely bag. And that darker solid blue that she used for the bindings and straps really sets that all off really beautifully. So here's what you need to know if you want to do that. Let me get some of this stuff out of my way. So when you assemble a bag with the lining sides together, then your binding will end up on the outside. So let's just take this one. So here we've got, when we sewed the side strip to the body, our main fabric sides together, that puts our binding on the inside. If we had sewn with the main fabric sides together, as I showed here, then your binding would end up on the outside, as that one was done. It's going to be less noticeable on the inside than on the outside, but if you're confident in your binding skills or you like that look, either way is always an option. And you don't have to do anything different in the pattern. It's at the very end when you're assembling it, just decide whether you want main or linings together. All right, so we've talked about how to determine what the finished size and the usable size of your bag will be. So what do you do if you want or need to change any of that? I'm going to get this bag out of my way, and we're going to talk about an ultimate travel bag. So let's say you're working on an ultimate travel bag and you just realized that you cut the side strip too short. What do you do now? So Julie was making an ultimate travel bag and she couldn't get the math to work out as she was shaping the zipper strip. And that's when she discovered that it was a 1/2 inch too short. She then measured the side strip, which was also a 1/2 inch too short. And Julie said, I do not want to start over, so she sent out an SOS to the amazing group of ByAnnie bag makers, and they responded with a number of really helpful suggestions. So we're going to talk about some of the possible ways that Julie could have approached this challenge. So Kim, I thought, had the easiest suggestion, and she said, don't change anything, just baste it together and fudge it to join. It's a bag, not a garment made to fit, so try and wiggle it to fit. And truthfully, since she was only an inch off, which works out to just 1/4 inch on each side, I think that would have worked fine. I think she could have just sewn it together. Fabric quilted with soft and stable can easily be stretched or compressed, and I really doubt that 1/4 inch of easing on any of those sides would have even been noticeable. However, there were lots of other solutions, and oftentimes there's more than an inch of difference, so let's keep talking. So Julie's first question was, if I just cut a 1/2 inch off from the top and bottom of the bag, front and back, will I be in the clear? So I wanted to show you some step outs from that, and let's talk about how the math works. So on Ultimate Travel, we start with a front and a back, and then we make a zipper side strip, which gets sewn to that. So the important thing to know is that, like many of our bags, our Easy Does It is the same way, our Round Trip is the same way. They all start with a front and back, and then a zipper side strip that goes around the side. So the zipper strip is sewn to another strip. On this pattern, it's called the side strip. On some of them, it might be called the back strip, like on Pack It In, or it might be called the base, which is, I think, what we called it on Courtside. But it's all, you're making those strips, sewing them together to make a loop that will then form the top, the sides, and the bottom of the bag, which is then sewn to the front and back. So the important thing to know here is that the math, if you take the math of the distance all the way around your front or back of the bag, that has to equal the math of the distance around the loop. So if your zipper strip is a 1/2 inch too short and your side strip is a 1/2 inch too short, your whole zipper side strip loop is going to be 1 inch too short. So if you choose to fix things by reducing the height or width of the bag, that also needs to be reduced by a total of 1 inch. And there's all kinds of ways you can do that. So the first thing you could do is reduce the height by a 1/2 inch. Because this zipper loop goes up one side and down the other side, when you reduce the height of the front of the back of your bag by 1/2 inch, that's going to take up 1 inch of the zipper side strip loop, because you've got a 1/2 inch here and you have a 1/2 inch here. Keep in mind that all of this assumes that you're going to follow the instructions in the pattern for shaping and rounding the corners. So if you're going to reduce the height of the bag by a 1/2 inch, keep in mind that there are a number of other things that are affected by that change. So you've got pockets on the outside and the inside both, and those will be a 1/2 inch taller than what the front or back of the bag is, unless you reduce their heights. We're going to talk more about adjusting pockets next week, but for now, know that we do put careful thought into where they fall out so that you'll have easy access, and also so that we avoid excess bulk in certain spots. So I'd probably go ahead and cut those a 1/2 inch shorter, just as I did the back, front, and back. But you'll want to put some thought into that. Another way, if you don't want to reduce the height, is you could reduce the width by a 1/2 inch. And again, because that loop goes all the way around, if you reduce your width by a 1/2 inch, that's going to take up that full 1 inch that you need. So what else is affected if you reduce the width of the bag? Well, it's going to just change the lines that you mark to center your front and back pockets on it. You're going to see that these handles overlap that, so it's also going to change the where you put those. You could reduce the width of the pockets by a 1/2 inch, but keep in mind that we designed this bag so that there's a trolley sleeve on the back. If you make it a 1/2 inch narrower, there's a good chance that it's not going to fit over the handles on your rolling luggage. If you leave the pockets as designed, your straps are going to have to move out a little bit to accommodate that 1/2 inch you took off. It's only a 1/4 inch out further. I don't think you would notice that. That's probably what I'd do, but you're also going to have to adjust the markings for those. Sometimes these handles, they're not very long. If you move those out too far, they're going to get shorter, so you may also need to increase the length of the handles. So there's a whole lot of things to pay attention to. We designed these handles so you could cut them out of one width of fabric. If you're going to add 1 inch to them, you're probably going to have to piece fabric to make the handles. So that's something else to consider. Another easier option than doing a 1/2 inch from the height and a 1/2 inch from the width is just to take a 1/4 inch off the top and a 1/4 inch off the width. Again, that's going to give you that full 1 inch that you need, and you could probably get by without making changes to any other pieces other than just adjusting your markings a little bit. Another way that you could adjust the front and back of the bag would be to adjust how it's shaped. So this is more complicated. It requires some math. Wouldn't be my first choice for a solution. Adjusting the height and width is definitely easier. So when we do the Ultimate Travel Bag, we start with full rectangles for the pieces. And when we're ready to shape it, we're going to mark some lines 1.5 inch in from each side, and then we're going to draw angled lines to shape it so that it ends up looking like this. And we're going to use circle rulers to round the top and bottom corners. It's going to take some geometry to calculate what the length of that is. You're going to look at the triangle and figure out what the length of that longest side is. And you're also going to need to calculate the amount that you lose when you round the corners. It's way more than I want to get into. That's part of the heavy lifting that we do when we write patterns. So I'm going to leave it up to you to figure out how to do that, but I'll reiterate, as long as you shape and round corners as directed in the pattern, you can make some minor adjustments to the length and width and not worry about changing those. All right, let's go back to Julie's post. So as I said, Julie's first thought was to trim down the front and back pieces, and truthfully, for such a small error, I think that taking a 1/4 inch off all the sides on the front and bag would have been really easy and not even noticeable in the finished bag. However, there were other alternatives suggested. Most everyone, and I would concur, suggested that she not worry about completely remaking the zipper or side strips, and most everyone agreed that there was no need to change the zipper strips. Her zipper would be a 1/2 inch shorter, which is only a 1/4 inch on each side, so her bag just wouldn't open quite as wide. But again, a 1/4 inch, that's hardly going to be noticeable. There is some shaping that's done on the top of this zipper strip, so once you've got your straight pieces sewn on here, you do some shaping in here. And because her strip was so close to the right side, I think she'd be fine just marking it as directed. But again, if it had been significantly off, then you would have to figure out how to adjust the shape. So the general consensus from everyone was that it would be easier to just add a little bit of fabric to her side strip, which looks like this when it starts. And they suggested that she add some fabric in there to make that longer so that her zipper loop would still be the same. There are several ways you can do that. So one way would be to just add some fabric to the end. And if you look at a finished bag, you're going to see that you don't really see very much of that end there. The side pockets and the carrying strap cover most of it. So it would be mostly hidden, but I probably wouldn't put it right at the end. My suggestion, if you're going to do that, would be to add some fabric somewhere in here where the side pocket's going to cover it. That would have been an easy solution. It would have been completely hidden, but it would have taken a bit of thinking to make sure it fell out in the right place. And by reading the pattern, you should be able to figure that out. Since these side pockets go on top of that, it would also add a little bit of bulk, more bulk in an area that's already a bit bulky. So several people suggested another solution, which was cutting the side strip in the middle and adding an inch of fabric right here. And that added fabric would be on the bottom of the bag. There's not a lot of other pieces sewn there, so it's not going to add too terribly much bulk. And the chance of anybody noticing it is slim. Vicki C. even said, just put a stripe of your geometric fabric on the bottom and make it look like you meant to do that, which is always a good idea too. So if you decide to do something like that, remember that we have a really good tutorial at our website that's called Using Directional Fabrics, and it includes instructions for joining two pieces of fabric. It's a really great technique, and I think it would work really good there. So because you're using unquilted fabric to join the pieces, you don't end up adding too much bulk to the seam. So basically what you're going to do is cut 2 strips of fabric. I've used different colors here, which you can do, but you could match them to your main fabric. So on the outside, you want a 1-inch piece of fabric. On the inside, you have a 1.5-inch piece of fabric. And you're going to cut those to the same width as your quilted fabric that you're trying to extend. So then you're going to take, let's say this is your main fabric, put those together with right sides together, and you'll put your other piece of fabric on the lining side, right sides together, and you're going to sew across that with a 1/4-inch seam. Then you're going to take your other piece of quilted fabric, and I've got this done. So we've got both of those sewn there. Then we take our other piece of fabric and we sew it just to the fabric. I had those backwards. So this is our main fabric in this case. We're going to sew those together, and what that ends up doing is creating a little bit of main fabric on the outside. And in my case, I've changed it so you can see it. And that brings our edges together on the inside, but they're not overlapping each other. Then you take that wider piece that you've put on the other side, you fold it over, you turn the ends under and press it, and then you can stitch in the ditch on the outside, and that covers it. So keep in mind that if you want to add an inch of fabric to your pieces, your quilted fabric that you add in there is going to have to be 2 inches wide, as you're going to lose some to seam allowances on each side, plus on each side of the strip. So what did Julie end up doing? Well, in the end, she decided to use several pieces of fabric and frankenbag her side strip by joining a variety of pieces of quilted fabric. I couldn't tell from her pictures whether she covered the seams on the other side, but the way this project is designed, you put a stabilizer sleeve on here that you can put a stabilizer into, and so it would all be covered. You wouldn't see that if you did it, so you could certainly get away without doing it. And I thought she did a great job. So we've got a photo of Julie's finished bag to show you. And Julie, you just did a fabulous job. I can guarantee you that the next one you make is going to be so much easier. And I enjoyed seeing all the bags that you've made since then and reading about how much easier they seem now that you're more familiar with ByAnnie patterns. So keep at it. All right, so Julie adapted her ultimate travel bag by necessity because of a miscut couple of pieces. But what if you want to adjust the size or the shape on purpose? First, remember that we always recommend that you make at least one project following the pattern so that you understand how things go together. That way you'll understand what's going to be affected if you change sizes or features. So here is an adapted ultimate travel bag that Mary made to hold her mahjong supplies. So Mary made the bag wider and shorter, but it appears that she kept the same basic shape. So here's what the ultimate travel bag looks like. You can see she made it shorter and wider. She also used the all-aboard train case for her mahjong tiles, and then she used some leftover fabrics for the wraps that went around the racks. And Mary said that the mesh pocket in the all-aboard was perfect for holding the dice, which I thought was a great idea. So let's say you want to do something like that. How would you proceed if you want to adjust the height and width like Mary did? So first you're going to start by figuring out how tall, wide, and deep you want the finished bag. So this is the height, this is the width, this is the depth. And Mary said that she wanted her bag to be 22 inches wide and 11 inches high. So that means she added 3.5 inches to the width, but she took 2 3/4 inches off of the height. She didn't say anything about the depth, so I'm assuming she kept that the same. So really, she only had a difference of 3/4 of an inch in her finished size, which is 3.5 minus 2 3/4. So assuming that her shaping stayed generally the same and she rounded it with the same size circles, that means that she would just need to increase her zipper side strip loop by a total of 1.5 inches, which is the 3/4 of an inch times 2. So Mary could add that to the zipper strip, she could add it to the side strip, or she could split it between the two. So to figure that out, she just needs to decide how far down the side she wants the zipper to come and how far up the sides she wants the side strip to come, and then go from there. There's no set formula. You just kind of have to figure that out for each bag as you go. Keep in mind that all of the pockets and measurements on the various pieces are also going to need to change, but by paying attention to the difference between the new measurements and the pattern measurements, it's going to be pretty easy to make all the necessary adjustments. I need another drink of water. So here is a bowl me over that Christine modified for her mom. So she tapered the front and back less than the pattern directs, and she skipped the shaping on the zipper strips. And I'm going to bring this bowl me over up so you can kind of look at it compared to hers. As you can see, that really changed the look of her finished bag. As I said earlier, if you're going to change the shape, you'll need to do some math to figure out how the circumference of the bag changes so that you can determine the changes needed to the zipper side strip loop. All right, let's talk now about Take a Stand, which is assembled in a very different way from Ultimate Travel Bag. So Ultimate Travel Bag and most of the others that we've talked about have a front, a back, and a side strip. But here is a set of Take a Stand bags that Carol made to hold her featherweight and her sewing supplies. So you'll see the small Take a Stand next to the jumbo version that Carol modified. She wanted it to be able to hold her featherweight case inside. So here is the large Take a Stand with a featherweight inside. But Carol wanted to not just be able to put the sewing machine inside, she also wanted to put the sewing machine in its case inside. So I asked Carol if she would share some information about how she adapted the pattern. I actually tried putting this in last night. It fits, but it comes all the way to the top, and there's not much wiggle, there's no wiggle room around the sides. So as we suggested, Carol says, make the small version first, according to the pattern instructions, before you attempt to make any changes to the other. She also recommends that you make our free ByAnnie Basics patterns, especially the Easy Does It. And so she said, be sure to measure your case and compare it to the pattern instructions. She must have a collection of featherweights because she said none of her cases were the same size. So she had several that she mentioned. She also recommends that you add at least 1.5 inches to the width and the depth of the case so that it will fit in the bag, because as she said, and this is so true, if a bag is too loose, that's better than a bag that's too tight, because you can always put your project's fabric, a wool pressing mat, a ByAnnie project bag in to fill that space. There are also some mesh pockets on the interior that you can use, or you can leave them out. And Carol said if you do include them, she recommended that you make them shorter so that they don't get caught on the latches on the case. And she says if you want to carry your thicker items in the interior mesh pocket, you may want to add 1/2 inch to account for those items. So make them so they're a little bit gathered. So here's one thing to note about Take a Stand. So as I said, unlike Ultimate Travel, this bag is made so that there's one long piece that will form the front, the bottom, and the back of the bag. So it's going to kind of look like that once it's assembled, and then you put ends on each side. So any adjustments that you make to that piece are going to be affected by the height of the finished bag, the width, if you may need to increase all these, and the depth. So let's say that you want your adapted Take a Stand to be 1/2 inch taller, 1.5 inch wider, and 1.5 inch deeper than the large size. That means that you're going to need to cut your pieces 11.5 inch taller and 1.5 inch wider. So I got that by taking the 5 inches that I wanted it taller, so 5 inches for the front, 5 inches for the back, and then I wanted it 1.5 inch deeper, so I had to add 5 plus 5 plus 1.5, which is 11.5 inches. So you're going to need to decide how much taller you want the ends and the pockets to be and adjust those accordingly. So Carol said that she didn't want the top of the case to interfere with the zipper, so she made these ends a little bit shorter than what we have designed. In our pattern, they're designed to be pretty much right up at the top, and she made hers shorter. And of course, you're also going to possibly have to change the length of the handles because you're going to have 5 inches more here that they're sewn in underneath there. We'll talk more about handles and pockets and all of that in next week's because there are a lot of things that you have to consider for that as well. But hopefully that helps you understand. I thought she did such a fabulous job on that bag. I loved the way she put her paper piece spools on the pockets and things. Lots of fun things you can do with that. All right, let's close by taking a look at a very clever Travel Essentials 2.0 that Nairi adapted as a special gift for her kids. I'm going to show you what the pattern looks like, and then we'll take a look at what Nairi did different. So this is a bag that's designed to hold your makeup and toiletries when you travel, and it's basically one long piece that opens up, and it's got flat pockets here and then a dimensional bag or pocket at the bottom, and it's designed to fold up and close, and you have a small bag. But Nairi said, my son and his family are going on a Disney cruise, and Disney cruises have fish as the doorknobs on their staterooms or cabins. If you want to participate, they also have a secret gift-giving arrangement, which is facilitated by hanging a stacked and named series of pockets on your fish doorknob. So the stacked pockets are called fish extenders. I thought this was so interesting. I'd never heard of such a thing. So Nairi said, my daughter-in-law asked me to make them a fish extender, saying I wouldn't insult your abilities by bypassing you for some random Etsy craft person. That gave me a laugh too. To make this project, I took the bottom pouch pocket from Travel Essentials, reduced the height and width of the pocket, and then stacked them 4 high, and a fish extender was born. So I really loved seeing Nairi's fun bag, and I thought that was a really clever way to make it. So again, making the Travel Essentials pattern as directed would be especially important so that you know how everything goes together and how you'd want to adjust the length and width of the various pieces before you start. But thank you, Nairi, so much for sharing the photos and your story. All right, before we close, let's see if there's any questions. It looks like there's only one. So that question is, when does the current challenge end? So I think I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, but basically this challenge runs for 2 months, but because of the way our photo contest is set up, we can't really carry entries over. So we are going to pick winners for the challenge in February. We're also going to pick winners in March. So you've got a chance to win prizes twice. So you can enter something in February, you can enter something in March, you can enter 2 different projects. It's kind of up to you. All right, I hope you enjoyed seeing all those creative projects, learning some tips for adapting the size and shape, and that you're ready to accept our challenge. So if you need more help making adjustments, be sure to check out season 1, week number 30 of Live with Annie. In that episode, we talked about, among other things, how to adapt our in the mix pattern for other uses. I've had people who want to make them for air fryers and sergers and things. So be sure and check that out. The section about how to adapt patterns begins at about the 5-minute mark in that one. And again, remember this challenge is going to run for 2 months, so you can enter either or both. And to do that, just go to ByAnnie.com, click on the photo contest/gallery link, and it will take you to a place to enter your project. And when you do that, be sure to tell us about the modifications you made, which pattern you adapted, what you changed, and tell us the story of why you did that. So we can't wait to see your creative modifications and learn about your inspiration. As always, please ask for these patterns and supplies at your local quilt shop. They are such an important part of our sewing and quilting communities, and it is up to all of us to keep them strong and vibrant. Remember, if they don't have these products, they can certainly get them, either from their favorite distributor or directly from us, and we're always happy to set up a wholesale account for them, so just ask them to contact us for more information. One more drink. So our 7th annual local quilt shop is going strong. It has really been fun to watch the votes pour in over the past week. With over 2 weeks still left in the contest, as of this morning, over 1,600 stores in 10 countries had received almost 27,000 votes. So currently in the lead is So Indipitus in Rock Hill, South Carolina, and they have almost 1,100 votes. But there are a number of U.S. shops that are not that far behind. As we have said before, this contest is a marathon, not a sprint, and things can change quickly. So in Australia, last year's grand prize winner, Kadena Craft and Sewing Center, is at the top of the leaderboard. But keep in mind that shops can only be a grand prize winner once. So the competition in Australia is much more fierce than the numbers show. Just a few votes separate the top shops in Australia and in a number of U.S. states, so there is sure to be some movement in the rankings in these last 2+ weeks of the contest. There is still plenty of time to make your favorite shop a winner. I take some time each day to browse through the leaderboard and read customers' comments, and we are so appreciative to all of you for helping show the love to local quilt shops. Your comments really make it obvious how much those stores mean to you. And I can tell you that as a business owner, hearing positive comments from customers always makes my day. So whether a store receives 1 vote or 1,000 votes, I can assure you that reading their customers' comments will mean so much to them as well. This morning we filmed a fun little video to share today, and it includes the whole ByAnnie team reading some of the touching stories that were shared by voters in the contest. We're going to play it at the end of today's episode, so stay tuned to that. But remember, our goal in this contest is to support and celebrate local quilt shops. We would love to see every single local quilt shop around the world get at least 1 vote. So please take a minute to vote for your favorite shop or shops and share the love. Remember, you can only vote for each store once per email address, but if you have more than 1 favorite shop, you can vote for each. Thank you again to everyone who joined us today. We will be back next Wednesday at 2 p.m. Mountain Time with another inspiring episode of Live with Annie. We're going to continue our series of helpful tips for adapting ByAnnie patterns as we talk about what to consider if you want to add or subtract pockets, handles, straps, or other features. And until then, happy stitching! Hi, I'm Annie of ByAnnie.com and Patterns by Annie. Our 7th annual Local Quilt Shop Contest is in full swing, and we encourage you to visit our website at LQScontest.com to vote for your favorite local quilt shop and tell us what makes them special. As I scroll through the leaderboard each day, I'm reminded of the difference that each and every one of these shops makes in their community. Whether they have received 1 vote or 1,000 votes in the contest, each one has touched the lives of customers and impacted them in a positive way. To help celebrate these stores, I've invited the rest of the ByAnnie team to help me share some LQS love by highlighting some of the touching stories that voters have submitted. Quilt shops have a personal touch that makes us feel like family. Linda's comment about Mountain Creek Quilt Shop in Alcoa, Tennessee, tells that story well. Here to read Linda's comment is David, who manages the ByAnnie warehouse and keeps everything running smoothly.
Whether I need an artist's opinion for a border or binding, a friend to share a happy occasion with, or even a shoulder to cry on, I can find it all at Mountain Creek Quilt Shop. It's like you are met with a hug, whether it is physical or not. You might walk in as a customer, but you walk out feeling like family.
Quilt shops inspire us, teach us new skills, and boost our confidence. No doubt many of us will relate to Kathy's story about pinwheels and posies in Dickinson, Texas. It's read by Jackie, who manages our trunk show models, expertly ships orders, and keeps everyone happy and smiling.
Pinwheels and Posies is the most visually appealing store I've ever entered. As soon as you walk into the door, it's like you've walked into a room in Willy Wonka's factory. You are taken to a place of childlike wonder where anything is possible. The owner and her staff are friendly, welcoming, knowledgeable, and supportive. They are excited for your projects and are honored when you share the results. If you are wavering on a fabric or color, they're happy to help find something you're looking for, provide a second opinion, or patiently wait for you to decide while complimenting you along the way. They offer a variety of classes for any level of experience in sewing or quilting. They host sewing bees, and they encourage a sense of community. It's a magical place where sunshine and rainbows thrive, no matter the weather outside.
Local quilt shops help us find friends to cheer us on and help us through the hard times, as you'll hear in this comment from Patricia about Adirondack Quilts in South Glens Falls, New York. Jake, who films and edits videos and lives and manages our soft and stable inventory, shares Patricia's comment.
If you want to cheer up and make a lifelong friend who enjoys creating like you do, this is the place to go. I was fortunate enough to find them nearby when I needed a new hobby to help me through a serious medical issue that was forcing me to retire as a physician. I can't express how much being able to make the transition with their help has meant to me.
Local quilt shops encourage beginners and create a community for makers of every level, as shared by Amina, who voted for Muppin's Sewing Emporium in Paducah, Kentucky. Her comment is read by Shara, who keeps our accounting records in tip-top shape.
Muppin's Sewing Emporium doesn't overwhelm even those who are new to sewing, offering inspiration and a wide range of sewing materials suitable for beginners. The shop's inclusivity and diverse offerings make it a standout choice for anyone looking to explore the world of quilting.
Large or small, local quilt shops care about their customers and work to provide what they need. Pat said it succinctly in her comment about Anything Sews LLC in Dover, Ohio. Casey B., who expertly ships orders and double-checks assemblies, as well as writes the photo contest blogs, shares Pat's comment.
Anything Sews offers exceptional, knowledgeable, and friendly attention. They are small enough to care about you and your projects individually, and large enough to have everything you need.
Quilt shops inspire and challenge us and feed our creativity. Jill said it well in her comment about artistic artifacts in Alexandria, Virginia. Jill's comment is read by Glow, my beautiful daughter-in-law, who handles purchasing, payroll, pattern design and testing, photography, and more.
This shop is a feast for the imagination. I can always find what I need for any project, and inspiration for several more.
Local quilt shops continually educate us, no matter our skill level, with classes, training, and more. PT recognized that in a comment about Apple Tree Quilting Center in Columbia, Missouri. Reading PT's comment is Nolan, who in addition to assembling patterns, zippers, and more, is a full-time college student majoring in engineering.
They do the best classes, not just introductory works, but really detailed and difficult courses too. There's always a class I want to take, and I've been coming here for 10 years.
Quilt shops encourage us and celebrate our accomplishments, as evidenced by Mary's comment about her favorite shop, Warm and Cozy Quilting in Columbia, Illinois. Reading Danielle's comment is Addison, the newest and youngest member of the ByAnnie warehouse team, who helps with assembly and more.
I completed my first attempt at ruler work on their long arm machine. They were as excited as me when I finished, pictures and everything.
Simply put, quilt shops enrich our lives. Dace summed it up well in this comment about Seven Sisters Quilt Shop in Carson City, Michigan. Dace's comment is read by Lee, who's always the first person to arrive at ByAnnie. He works hard to have most of the orders pulled before the rest of the team arrives.
The store is owned and operated by two of the nicest and kindest sisters. You always feel welcome. They have a great selection of fabrics, patterns, and notions. Always something new to see. And the fresh baked cookies they serve each day are an added delight. They have expanded to a quilt shop, a schoolhouse, and quilt retreat. They have brought new life and energy to the entire town.
Over and over, voters shared stories about the friends and memories they've made at their local quilt shops. Jonna summed it up well in this comment about Wild Oats Sewing Company in Loveland, Colorado. Hope, who helps with distributor orders and assembly, shares Jonna's comments.
This is very much a shop about community where friendships start, smiles are abundant, and creations and memories are made. What fun.
Repeatedly, voters talked about what quilt shops mean to them and how much they appreciate them, as you'll hear in these comments from Pamela and Ashanti about Serendipitous in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Casey, our big picture guy who is almost ready to launch our new ByAnnie website, shares their comments.
It's a place where I can escape from the hustle and bustle of everyday life. It's my little slice of quilting heaven, and I can't imagine life without it. We didn't have a quilt shop for so long. Don't ever leave us.
I get such a warm glow after reading these stories, and I just can imagine how they will light up a busy shop owner's day. The comments really show how important our local quilt shops are to all of us. They connect us with others who share similar interests. They inspire us, teach us new skills, and boost our confidence. They help us diagnose problems and provide solutions. They're there when we're facing hard times to offer a hug and a listening ear. They make us feel welcome and they enrich our lives. Again, if you haven't already voted, be sure to take a minute to do that now and ask your family and friends to vote too. Just go to lqscontest.com/vote. And don't hold back on your stories about the stores. We really want to show them some love on this day of love and every day.